And you should all know that these talks are broadcast all over the world on a Friday night. I just come back again from an overseas trip, and it's amazing how many people in so many countries actually hang out for this talk on a Friday night. Just as I'm introducing the talk, I met a monk in Hong Kong from Egypt, from Cairo. He thinks he's the only Buddhist in the whole of that country. So I appointed him as the head monk of Egypt. He's the only one. They're just listening to the talks from here on the internet. So let him become interested in this to the point of becoming a Buddhist. So you don't realize just these talks on a Friday night, how powerful they are all around the world. But anyway, there are so many of these talks on the internet. I know at least my talks, there's over 1,000, which some people have downloaded on their iPod. I don't know how you can get so many talks. And sometimes I feel a bit dismayed. All that hard work, thousands of hours of giving talks, and they're on this tiny little piece of equipment. And I thought, is that all it's really worth? But no, that's just for convenience. But you can imagine the challenge which I have of having to deliver something a little bit new or original on every talk. And it's not just the Friday night talks. I mentioned I'd just come back from Hong Kong and last night in Singapore, actually the night before in Macau. And for those of you who think the only reason you go to Macau is to go to the casinos, monks do not go to casinos. Or it may be interesting that in the last 4 months I've been to Las Vegas and Macau, but it was to give a talk at a university in Macau. In each of those places you give Dhamma talks, they're all recorded, many of them are put on the internet. And so it is a challenge to give a new talk. No professor at university has to give a different talk every night of the week, for months on end like I do. But one of the ideas, and to keep this beautiful teachings fresh and alive, is to have no plan at all of what you're going to talk about until you open your mouth. And that is the case even this evening. It takes a lot of trust and a lot of courage to overcome your fear that you can have all these people coming, about 300 people here, about 40 or 50,000 just looking on the other end of that camera over there, and to be able to give a talk just about something interesting and fresh. If you had plans, you'd always be repeating yourself. But when you don't have plans, when you just respond to the moment, you find it's amazing just how you can innovate and see things in an interesting, new way. And already during the talk, during the meditation, I mentioned a word which they gave me lunch in Hong Kong, and they was mentioning this thing which I keep on trying to say, to increase the idea in especially science of Buddhism, not just being about mindfulness, but also being compassionate as well. And so we have coined another new word, and I mentioned this in the meditation, kindfulness. And sometimes the power of just one word is something which is phenomenal, because it does actually change people's understanding of Buddhism and also the understanding of meditation and all these therapies which are coming from meditation in our modern world. Now, even many of you who come here, I know, are psychologists. You practice psychology during the week, and you get all the tips on what to do next week by coming here. It's cheap and very effective. And many of you psychologists will know that there is a buzz term called mindfulness-based stress reduction therapy, MBSR. And it is so common that the acronym is well known. And I remember just in Kuala Lumpur just last, 4 or 5 months ago, that was when this very wealthy guy came to see me, and he'd had some anxiety, depression disorders. And so being a wealthy guy, he went to the best place in the world, the Mayo Clinic in the United States, where film stars and multimillionaires and crooks go for rehab. And when he came to see me, he said how stupid I was, flying all that way to the US, spending all that money, which was considerable. I mean, that's big bucks going to a place like that. And he said, all of the therapists there, they were all Buddhist. And they were just teaching what you teach here for free every Friday night. I'm so stupid, I could have got it from the source without wasting any money. And this is what you're getting now. You're getting it from the source, free of charge. How wonderful it is. And it's not just getting it from the source, but you're getting the cutting edge. That old stuff which they're teaching in the Mayo Clinic is about 5 or 10 years old. You hear it here first. Kindfulness. Have you heard that word before? I'm sure that after about 2 or 3 years, that'll be around the globe, and kindfulness-based stress reduction will be the buzzword. And there's a good reason why, is because monks who actually meditate, who actually spend a lot of their time living inside their mind, get to understand how this mind works, and you have to have kindfulness, not just mindfulness. Without that compassion and softness, you get into big trouble. So what is actually kindfulness? That is one example of kindness without mindfulness. It's an old story. I mentioned it a few days ago in a talk I gave over in, I think, Hong Kong or somewhere. That actually is wonderful going overseas, because you do get some more sort of stories and some more inspiration for new ways of looking at things and new talks. And I think many of you know that because I cultivate a positive mind, when I go overseas to different countries, I like to learn one word, at least one word, in their language. And the word I always try and remember is very good. Because I say that so often that even in my meditation retreats, whatever you come up and tell me in your interviews how your meditation is going, I always invariably say, very good. Even if you tell me that you've been sleeping all day, I always say, very good. If you say you've been breaking all the rules, I say, very good. So much so that some of the other monks have volunteered to do the interviews for me, because they don't need to be wise. All they need to do is say, very good. And you can understand just the power of a nice word like that, because how often in your life do you get criticized and put down? This is wrong, you should do it another way. Don't do it that way. You've been misbehaving, you've been wasting your time. Oh, come on, you get that all day. And isn't it nice? You come up and you sort of, tell me what you're doing, and I say, very good. That is kindfulness. You're aware of that being in front of you. And one of the most important things you're aware of is just how people are criticized, how they're put down, how because of the nature of this world, its speech and its actions, it's so hard to get any respect. And I use that word in a very deep way, respect. There are a lot of times we always feel we're diminished, we're not good enough, we're not clever enough, we're not beautiful enough. Whatever it is, it's always never good enough. And so just by me saying that term, very good, to people, that is kindness, and I'm aware that that is the ingredient they probably needed more than anything else. Some just affirmation that there's not something terribly wrong with them. And just that amount gives you that confidence, that energy, that sort of ability to let go of the past. You've done something wrong, you're not quite sure what it was, but it must be something bad because I'm suffering right now. And that sort of lack of self-worth and self-esteem, as you know, is one of the great problems of our modern world. It means we can't love ourselves, and we can't love ourselves, we can't love others, we can't have a beautiful life. And so because of that, I keep on saying, very good. And it also means I don't really need to think so much about finding a good answer. Just very good is one of these wonderful things you can say anytime at any place. So you can try that. When your wife says, sort of, oh, shall we, go out this evening? Say, yeah, very good. If she says, oh, my mother-in-law's coming this weekend, I say, very good. It's amazing just how we'll have such a happy life. Say, very good. And you don't have to listen and argue. How much time do you spend arguing in relationships? So remember, just say that word, very good. Anyway, to go back to why I said this, was that I learned, very good in Indonesian is bagus, in bagus sekali, in Sri Lankan is sinhala, it's bahomohondai. And the word in Cantonese for very good? This is my favourite word, ho ho ho. It's true. Ho 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 means very good in Cantonese. And so from that, I got the great insight. Ask any of the people here, from China. They'll say that's absolutely true. Ho 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 is Cantonese for very good. So now I really understand. Santa Claus is Chinese. He doesn't come from the North Pole. He comes from the Far East. Ho, ho, ho. Very good. So that is an example of kindfulness. Being aware and giving kindness. The story I was going to say, which I went off on a tangent, of the opposite of kindfulness is an old story years and years ago of when they used to have these Boy Scouts. I used to be a Boy Scout and used to have to do one good deed a day. Maybe that's one of the reasons I gave it up, because one good deed a day wasn't enough. What about all the other deeds you do that day? But one good deed a day, and once a Boy Scout did his good deed of a day by helping an old lady cross the road. And that was a classic story I learnt in my youth of what you're supposed to do if you're a Boy Scout. But unfortunate thing was the old lady did not want to go. And that's kindness without mindfulness. Now, how often is it that we're being kind, we think, but without any awareness? And the reason why we're not aware, we're not actually mindful of what the situation is and what it needs. And the trouble is, if we haven't got kindfulness, compassion and mindfulness coming together, we make so many mistakes in life. One of the stories which I wrote about in Opening the Door of Your Heart, which most of you have forgotten by now because it's been out a long time, which is a relief, was the story of a young boy who was born deaf. And he used to go to his doctor every 6 months for just a checkup. And on one of those checkups, the doctor happened to mention he'd been reading a medical journal, and there was a simple procedure which you could get on Medicare or whatever, and it would not cost very much, if anything at all, and it's not so intrusive, but it was found to restore hearing to 10% of boys and girls who were born deaf. There's a 10% chance of him restoring his hearing. It probably wouldn't work, 90%, but he said, why not give it a try? Who knows? Your boy can actually hear again. It's worth the chance. So the parents discussed it, and they said, yeah, let's give our kid a chance of hearing. And he was one of the 10% whose hearing was restored. What a wonderful thing that was. Was it? Because the kid really complained. He said, you never asked me. I don't want to hear. All I've got now is this terrible noise. I'd rather have an extra hand, he said, than hearing. Because he said he learned the world through feeling. He was so sensitive to touch. And the thing was, he said, you made this assumption that everybody wants to hear. And you never asked me. And that's why the boy was angry. When I read that article, I put it in Opening the Door of Your Heart, because it was an example of how often it is we assume we know what that person needs. And out of compassion, we go and help them. When I was in Hong Kong, I go to a very nice monastery. It's the website is called Buddhist Store. It's a nice one to get into, and there's lots of my talks and other people's talks in there. And we have many monks visiting from China, Mahayana monks. So it's great you can actually talk and find out what's going on in mainland China with Buddhism. And one of the monks was telling me a story that in their meditation retreats, their masters are very fierce. They don't say very good if you're nodding. They just get a big stick and hit you one. Not just even if you're a lay person, but not even if you're a monk, even lay people, you get hit too if you're falling asleep during meditation. He told me recently, in a Zen retreat in mainland China, there was this lady, she was meditating, she was a bit sort of sleepy, and the teacher just whacked her on the back with a stick. And she called the police. She said, not even my mother and father did this to me, and this old monk did it. So poor old monk got arrested. And this is in mainland China now. So you've got to be really careful of what you do. But I was saying, what on earth is that monk doing anyway? What are you supposed to hit somebody for? And he said, oh no, because that is supposed to reduce their ego. Reduce their ego? There's many better ways of reducing your ego than battering a person. But you can see, I said it was discipline. So there's many better ways of discipline as well. And we had this conversation about how to have discipline. It's important. If you're going to go to university and study, if you're working, you need to discipline yourself. You need to have some sort of restraint, to be able to do things which are difficult to do. Now, everyone has to have some form of discipline, but how do you get that discipline? If you have kindfulness, it's so easy to have discipline. Kindfulness, you're aware and you have compassion of what is needed at this particular time, what you should do. If you're working, what does kindfulness do? It means, I don't feel like working, but that's awareness. But the kindness is, it needs to be done out of compassion for myself, for the company in which I work, for my family and everybody else. It needs doing, and out of kindfulness, I'm going to do this work. If you are just aware without kindness, you get negative. And that negativity, I don't want to work for this company. I don't want to give another talk for the Buddhist Society on a Friday evening. I've just come back this afternoon from Hong Kong. I'm tired. Somebody else. Blah, blah, blah. You know that negativity which people have? Instead of having negativity, we are mindful that that is hurting ourselves and hurting others. It's not going to be productive at all for anybody. So you're aware of that and you change that to kindfulness. And the compassion sees what a wonderful thing it is, helping other people, how you can inspire, solve problems and create a happier world. That's compassion, that's kindness. So the mindfulness and kindness coming together, helps me do my job. I'm going to Indonesia on Monday. The last time I was in Indonesia, I forget what town it was. I'm doing 8 talks in 8 days, just like the Rolling Stones, one night stand in every city, starting in Jogja on Tuesday. But when you give these talks, sometimes I don't know why this is, but people like taking photographs of monks, especially in Indonesia. And I keep warning them, if you keep taking photographs of monks, there is a danger to that. Because that great Buddhist monument in Java, Borobudur, just outside of Yogyakarta, where I'm going on Tuesday, apparently the World Heritage people have discovered that so many people are taking flash photographs of that monument that it is actually destroying the stonework. Even the flashes and flashes are doing something chemical to those stones and it is degrading. And so I said, well, you're doing the same to me. But there was, I'm a monk. I'm not a monk to be photographed. It's interesting about why people... I went to a couple of retreats in my life. Now, teaching meditation. You get sometimes really famous people come to these meditation retreats. There was one monk told me that he was on a retreat. I think he was a layperson at the time. And on the retreat was a supermodel, Kate Moss. And, if you're a guy and you know that Kate Moss is in the audience, you have a look around. Which one is it? Of course you'll look around. I know the interesting thing he said. He looked around at all the girls on the retreat and he couldn't recognize her. She was on the retreat, but without the makeup and the dresses and the hairdo, she looked just like an ordinary woman and totally indistinguishable from anybody else. There wasn't the same when there was one lady who comes here. She's not here this evening, thank goodness, but she's a regular. She went to go and visit the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala in the north of India. And when she went there, she saw the Dalai Lama, had an interview with him with many other people. But they always have morning meditation. So she was a member of our Buddhist society, really good meditator. She was up early and she was meditating, or she started meditating. She sat down. A couple of minutes later, somebody else came and sat next to her. And he spoiled her meditation. She could not concentrate because that was Richard Gere. Richard Gere. God, watch the breath. Richard, come on, let go, Richard Gere. So, okay, if you're Richard Gere, be photographed. But, why do you have people photograph? So I was getting very negative when, this is no exaggeration, about an hour and a half, I was signing books and photographing. Signing books, photograph. And I started getting negative. I said, what am I doing this for? I didn't become a monk to sit here and just have people take photographs. What do they want a photograph of a monk? I'm over 60 years of age. I'm not Brad Pitt or some hunk from the movies. Why on earth are they doing this for? And I realized as soon as you start having negativity, you've lost all your kindfulness. And that created so much unhappiness. But as a monk, you always are so aware of what was happening. You're going on the wrong path. You start to get tense. You start to get even tired when you got negative. That drains so much energy out of the human being. So instead, I changed. Saw the problem, changed, and had a beautiful kindfulness. I don't know why, but it was making people happy. And when I saw their happiness, I got my happiness back. That was kindfulness. So whatever you're doing in your life, even it's stupid, you can't, what on earth am I doing this for? But when you look at it, if it's something which is making people happy, it really is something good and positive and inspirational, it's not doing anybody any harm, then why can't we enjoy the moment? That's the mindfulness and the compassion all working together. And if you practice kindfulness just in the ordinary matters of your daily life, just you're aware and you're kind instead of being negative, you'll find it actually brings you into life. Without the kindness, if you're negative, it's very hard to be mindful, to be aware. We just want to disappear. With negativity, that is where people have their addictions to drugs and to alcohol, to sex, to movies, anything to get me out of this moment. I hate being, so I want to go somewhere else. Take me off into some fantasy land in the movies. Take me off into some weird drug state. Get me drunk, anything but just to be here. Why is that? This negativity, and of course there can never be any awareness. So to come home and just to be. Mindfulness, you have to have kindness. Otherwise you can't stay here. Remember what I said during the meditation. There are too many human goings and not any human beings. Why do we go so much? Why do we work so hard, travel so much? I'm excused because I don't do this, I have to. People force me. And it's true. Look, this is an ad, okay, for our nuns monastery, Dharmasara Nuns Monastery. I promised somebody I would do this. Raising funds for nuns monastery. We have to do this, to have a place where our nuns can actually meditate, so we can have equity for women in Buddhism. Why not about time? You go to our monks' monastery, you go to all these other monasteries in the world for monks. They're big, they're rich, but what about for women? They're second rate. And I can't stand that. So, out of mindfulness and kindness, what I decided to do, it was just a joke. Many of the things in my life started out as jokes. We decided to have an auction. And we auctioned all sorts of things. Actually, this robe I'm wearing now is a new robe because my old robe, they stole it. They didn't steal it, but they asked for it in Hong Kong. They're going to auction my robe in Hong Kong. Well, I mean, my meditation cushion, it raised 32,000 Australian dollars when they auctioned that last time. Yeah. So this one I'm sitting on right now, this goes into the vault after I leave here. You're not allowing anyone to take it. So I don't know what they're going to flog my robe for. But I thought, now, how else? Because instead of asking you guys always to donate, you get fed up with all these appeals for this and appeals for that. So let's make it a bit more interesting. So I decided, well, why not auction me? So I am now officially for sale. True. If you're interested, go and look on the website ajahn.brahm4sale.com. It exists. So what I'm doing, I'm auctioning myself anywhere in the world for 7 days to the highest bidder. And all the funds go to Dhammasara Nuns Monastery. That's a wonderful thing, because all these people keep asking me, can you please go to Brazil? Can you go to Paris? They're really nice invitations. Paris, I've turned down 2 invitations to go to Paris. All expenses paid. Why do that? Because, I've got to look after you guys. A great sacrifice I make to come here on a Friday evening. But no, that's an example of, kindfulness. And it's good fun. So anyway, there's all sorts of people going to be sort of bidding for that anywhere in the world. So if you guys here in Perth, if you want me to stay longer, you can bid too. To keep me here for the 7 days instead. So you can see that's a bit of fun, and it's a bit of sort of, innovation, and it's interesting. So this is what kindfulness actually does. It creates, you come into this present moment. Why? Because it's fun. You're kind, you're putting joy into this moment, so you don't need to rush off into the past and the future. Why is it that people keep worrying about what happened in the past, keep thinking about it, or keep worrying and being anxious about the future? I've often told people to let it go, giving all these amazing ways of letting go of the past and the future. But unless you have kindfulness to the present moment, you appreciate being here, you have fun in this moment, of course you will always go somewhere else. So to be able to let go of the past and future and being in the present moment, it's not just seeing the negativity of the past or the waste of time-ness of the future. It's actually appreciating the joy and the beauty and the compassion of being right here, right now. It is called kindfulness of the present moment. So if you're kindful of where you are right now, it means, you're here and you're kind to this moment. You all know if someone comes into your office or into your house and they're really angry, they're really upset, they're in a bad mood, what does that do to you? That causes physical stress. And they haven't done anything, they're just an angry person. I remember one of the monks over in Malaysia once. He said he was in the house doing some sort of ceremony, and this guy came into the room, and he felt so tense, and he didn't know who this guy was. Why was he feeling just so tense and almost afraid? Because that guy was the public executioner of Malaysia, the guy who actually pulls the lever to hang people. That's a pretty scary guy to come into the room. Even though you haven't done anything wrong, you're a monk, you're not going to get hung. But nevertheless, such, sort of negativity and sort of black karma, whatever you call it, surrounding the public executioner, of course, you feel tense. But imagine the most kind, compassionate person comes into the room, and straight away you relax. Sometimes that's my job, because people are so tense and they're afraid. Just being kind is some of the best thing I can do. A good example, just recently, actually it was this morning, this poor girl came up for some counselling. This was even before I got on the aircraft, this morning. Just squeeze every last ounce out of me. They wanted some counselling, but I don't mind this, because this is one of the passions which I have. Now, I've got a lot of passions in my life, causes which I really, really want to change the world for a better place. You all know that I was very, very strong supporting voluntary euthanasia, because I see my own mum in having dementia for 3 years, being tortured by not knowing anybody. I've seen always very supportive of the gay and lesbian community, even though I'm sort of heterosexual, because I've seen just how much they have been abused. In this particular case, with women who have had abortions, how you are also abused. It's the toughest decision you ever make in your life, and I don't know why you carry guilt with you. And you carry the guilt because society, especially some religions, are just so harsh, and they have hardly any compassion. They don't have kindfulness to a woman standing in front of you who has had to abort a child, and it's a tough decision. They don't do that lightly, and it's between the rock and the hard place, literally, and they're in front of you with this huge emotional wound in front of them. And as a monk you can see that. Maybe if it was a physical wound, bleeding and lots of pus coming out, then you'd see it. But that's a huge emotional wound in a woman who's had an abortion, and some of those wounds haven't gone away for 10, 20, 30 years. And so, what do? Kindfulness. First of all, just your body language relaxes her, so she doesn't feel so guilty, so worthless, a murderer of unborn children. Can you see just how those words can make a person just cringe inside and feel they're not worth anything? And if they're not worth anything, how on earth can they ever come into this present moment and enjoy life? They'll always be trying to escape somewhere where they don't have to remember what they take to be as just a terrible crime against humanity. And of course it's not a crime against humanity. It's not bad thing. It's not the same as people who go and murder their husband or their wife or their wife's lover out of jealousy or out of anger or just out of just sheer malice. Those are bad karma. But when you have an abortion, that's a totally different ballgame. It should not be put in the same category at all. Just sitting in front of her and just being kind was one of the most wonderful therapies. Because when you have kindness and somebody comes up and they say they've had an abortion and you say, very good, you don't say, ho, 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 because they may not speak Cantonese and they may get the wrong impression that you're being facetious to an important thing in their life. But just being kind and then being aware. Because when you have mindfulness and kindness, I'm not saying if anybody here, all those of you in here, which are quite a number, who've had abortions in your life, be mindful, be kind. How do you feel? Be kind to yourself, for goodness sake. Because the alternative is just, it's suffering which is undeserved. It is suffering which should never have any place in our modern world. It's an invisible suffering. It's something which people can't see, but that does really affect your life, your health, your relationships. It affects your meditation too. Anyone who has feelings of guilt, In the Western world, guilt, what's the next thing associated with guilt? When a person is found guilty in the court, what's the next thing which happens? Punishment. In the West, guilt, punishment are close together. So anyone who feels guilty, you think you're going to get punished. And if no one else punishes you, you'll punish yourself. What a crazy thing that is. We don't do that in Buddhism. We do kindfulness instead. So, what have you done? Be aware of it. Basic psychology, you have to be aware first of all. If you push it down, you don't admit it, you hide it, you're denying it, you're suppressing it, and of course that really creates huge emotional, mental and physical problems. So for goodness sake, just admit it. Don't be afraid. Because if this punishment, you are afraid. Mentioned that in other talks, that why do people lie to each other? Because they're afraid if they told the truth, things will be so bad. They can't tell their parents because they'll get killed. Metaphorically, they say, my father will kill me if he found out I was pregnant. They can't tell their husbands and wives, oh God, he'll go bananas if I tell him what happened. So because of fear of punishment and pain, we don't tell the truth to the people we love. And also because of the same fear of pain, suffering, we don't tell the truth to ourselves. Which means we hide the truth. Denial. Can't you actually see that fear of punishment is what stops us being honest? Fear of punishment stops us being aware of what happened, of what an abortion was and why. So much of it is suppressed because of fear of guilt, shame, punishment, whatever it is in our society. And that is my passion, one of the passions, to please take away this punishment-based society where next thing is we feel guilty, where we hide the truth, where we lie, where we're not honest to ourselves or others, simply because we're afraid to tell the truth to ourselves. So the first thing, through kindfulness, there's been no punishment whatsoever. Whatever you tell me, very good. And I mean that. To make it very plain. I've been telling the story over in Hong Kong of the two forests. Once a person went into the forest and all the trees were crooked, leaning to the left and the right with branches hanging off, with all sorts of scars on the bark. And it was so beautiful. And then they went into the second forest, where all the trees were in lines and rows, with all the branches properly arranged and all the leaves in place. That is called a government plantation. That is not beautiful at all. Which would you rather walk in? A forest where all the trees are crooked and bent, leaning over, or a forest where everything is perfect? And of course, the forest is beautiful because it's natural. It's natural to be damaged. There is no person in this room who isn't damaged goods. It's just some people are more damaged than others, that's all. But we're all damaged goods. We're all crooked trees in the forest. We're not trees in government plantations. If you want to try and... that's just maybe the army is all in lines and rows and well behaved, but people are not. So isn't it beautiful that you are all damaged? Yes, I'm beautiful. I'm a natural tree rather than an artificial one. Yeah, so you've had an abortion. Yeah, you've done some terrible, stupid things in life. I've been telling a few people keep asking me, okay, what did you do when you were young, which was stupid? And I say one of the things I did, I made a bomb with my friend. We were 10 years of age, I think summer holidays. He was really good in chemistry. All I did was actually encourage him Okay, I did. And I provided the tin can. And it was amazing. It actually went off. It went bang in the local park. I was really proud of that. That was one of the coolest days in my life until I got caught. Then I was in big trouble. So yeah, do things like that, as a kid, many other worse things. But, we're all damaged, we're all human, we're all very good. You've had an abortion. Very good. You are just another little crooked tree in the beautiful forest, and you're welcome. You see, where there's no punishment, there's no fear. There's no fear of being criticized, scolded, or expelled. Isn't it wonderful? You can actually allow the truth to come up, and then once it comes up, you're kind to it, and you realize, my goodness, I am okay. I'm another beautiful tree in the crooked forest where everybody likes to visit and have their picnics and have their walks. What a wonderful thing this world is. So that is kindfulness. You're aware and are kind. It comes into this moment and you are free. You don't need to run away and hide anymore. Everything comes up to the surface, you're kindful to it, and the problem is solved. You even do that to bodily problems. How many of you here have got cancers? Other problems going on in your body? Something wrong with you. There's always something wrong with you. Me, I always got this sinus problems. Nose is a bit stuffed up here. Some sort of pollen or something somewhere. Even like flowers. And I don't know why it is my karma, being a monk. Sometimes the flowers have some pollen and get into my nose and stop me breathing properly. And I have to be the one always sitting closest to the flowers. So that's just my nose. It's always stuffed up or sneezing or itchy or something. But I have kindfulness to my allergies and other stuff. And other things which happen with your body, indigestion or tiredness. When I was in Macau recently, it was quite tiring. It was the last talk I gave on the trip in Hong Kong. It was at the university, and interestingly, I was giving the talk on Buddhism, medicine, and psychology. How these three are coming together in our modern world and are very powerful. Getting medicine, healing the body, psychology, healing the mind, and getting Buddhism in the middle of that. Because it has a lot of things to teach, to inform, and to enhance the practice of modern medicine and modern psychology. That's why universities have these courses: Buddhism, medicine, and psychology. So that was the talk I was going to give. But I'm not a hypocrite. I have to walk my talk. Actually, it reminds me, in Singapore once I was giving some talks in Singapore, and just before the talk, I had a free afternoon. They said a local temple was doing a fundraiser. And they were doing like a charity walk. You sponsor people, for walking. So it was only a short walk, about 6 kilometers or something. And I said, I've got a free afternoon. Why don't I just do the walk as well? But, to support another temple. So, you don't just support yourselves, you always support others as well. So I volunteered and I went with a few people. And because I'm well known in Singapore, they got me straight up, to give a little talk, to encourage people on the walk. So I gave I gave the first talk, and a local politician, he was also there, and he also gave a talk, trying to encourage people to join in this charity walk. And after he'd finished his talk, I said, I'm going to go on the walk. Are you going to go on the walk? And he said, no, I have to have another appointment. It's typical politician. You talk the walk, but you never walk the talk. But he really liked that, and I told many people about it afterwards. But I have to walk the talk, as well as talking the walk, do both. And so there was exhausted. And I was about to give a talk, and all these people were coming. What would I do if I fell asleep? And not just falling asleep. If you're tired, sometimes you can't string ideas together, and the talk, just is hopeless. So, out of compassion for all the people who were coming to listen to the talk, I was really tired, and so they gave me. I wanted some sort of solitude. The only place I could find in a university was an empty classroom, an empty lecture room. So I said, "Can I go in? You go out." So they left me alone in there for 2 hours. So there you are, you're tired. So what do? You practice kindfulness on your body. You relax it. So you're aware, you're kind, you don't fight the tiredness. That's the worst stupid thing people do. That's not being kind. That's making war. If you make war, you are going to be like US Army. Wherever you go, you cause a lot of problems. Be honest with you. Afghanistan, Iraq, where's the peace there? So whenever you have a war, you always create problems. So don't fight a war with your tiredness. Use kindfulness. So I sat there, hunched, because I was tired. Kind and aware, kind and aware, kind and aware, kind and aware. Because I was kind, I stayed with this moment. I didn't try and escape. I was a bent tree, very bent, beautiful. What a wonderful tree, you're bent all over. Beautiful, except kind, aware, kind, aware. That is what restores your energy. And after 2 hours, I actually meditated for too long. Because afterwards I gave my talk, got back to the temple just after midnight and couldn't sleep. Just too much energy. So this is actually what you do. Mindfulness and kindfulness. It's incredible how powerful that is to restore your energies. And also to restore your health. If you've got some problem in the body, aware and kind. And what did I teach at the beginning of the meditation? What happens is relaxes the whole body. And people in Hong Kong understand, if you relax the whole body, the chi just starts to go through. Because when you're tense, you block the natural healing energies of the body. You relax and everything flows through you. And that's actually how you heal many, many sicknesses in the body. So if you have got a cancer, practice kindfulness to your cancer. If you have got any other sickness, practice kindfulness to your sickness. If you have any disability, a hearing disability, a walking disability, an emotional disability like schizophrenia, practice kindfulness. And you'll find it's incredibly powerful healing. You try and get rid of things, that's not kindness, which means you'll be racing away anywhere else rather than where the action is. Kindness brings you into the moment, relaxes you. And as far as meditation is concerned, kindfulness is basically all you have to do to get into the deepest of meditations. Be aware and be kind. I keep on saying, kindfulness means you're aware and you stay here. Why? Because when you're kind to something, you like to be around kindness. If you're with a kind person, you like to hang around. You don't want to go. Still remember one of the great monks I used to know, dead many years ago, a Thai monk called Ajahn Tate, went to see him to ask some deep questions about meditation. But when you went into the room, he was such a kind monk. He was one of the kindest monks I ever met. And when I sat down in front of him, I said, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here forever. I'm not going to go to the toilet. I'm not going to go back. At last you had somebody who accepted you totally. You felt so incredibly safe. You weren't going to be harmed or criticized or put down. Nothing was asked of you. You had this total unconditional acceptance of kindfulness. From that experience, I realized how important kindfulness is, because that keeps you still. You just want to be here. Self-discipline. You can't force it. But when you want to be here, through kindfulness, it's just natural. You just stay here. Because you're kind, you like to hang out. And therefore, you get more and more deep in the meditation. Whatever happens in your practice of meditation, always be kind, be aware. You're in this moment. That will take you to the very deepest levels. And if you want to know what Buddhism is, it's just the practice of kindfulness taken to the very, very limit. So compassionate that you can open the door of your heart to everything. Totally aware, because kindfulness gives you the power, the energy, the wakefulness. As I said, when I was in Macau, 2 hours of kindfulness, you're so energized, so happy, so powerful. That is a Buddhist teaching on kindfulness. You've heard it here first. You will hear it in the books later on. Thank you for being so kindful to listen to me. Very good. Okay, so I got some questions from overseas. See where they come from today. From India, Sydney and Hungary. See, it's amazing when people listen to this. What is the difference between letting go and standing up for what is right? First of all, I never stand up for what is right. I always sit down for what is right. That's a silly joke, sorry. No, that sometimes the standing up for what is right, sometimes too many times in my early life, I stood up for what was wrong, but I thought it was right. Be very careful, what cause you're fighting for. Because a lot of those causes you're fighting for, you think it's the right cause, but sometimes when you do a bit more research, especially inside of yourself, it's actually counterproductive. Again, just countries like United States. I shouldn't put down the United States. They're a great country, doing lots of amazing things, but sometimes they think they're doing what is right. War on drugs by President Bush, or was it Nixon or something? I forget who. That war on drugs, you think it's the right thing to do, but it's been totally counterproductive. So sometimes we have to use wisdom power before we stand up for what is right. Find out exactly what is right, first of all. And find a skillful way of moving closer towards, this goal of peace, harmony, lack of corruption, or whatever else it is. Maybe in India, the safety of women from being raped by stupid people. Not stupid, but really crazy, crazy people. So, yes, we have to do something, but do it in a wise way, in a compassionate way. Be very, very careful when we fight for causes. Many of the causes I thought I was fighting for, which I thought were good, turned out afterwards maybe I was a bit deceived. And if we cannot let go, it means that sometimes we stand up for a cause, too long we stand up, and we get hurt. There is a time to let things go. And this is a great answer it's in Opening the Door of Your Heart, from a British Prime Minister during the 6-Day War. This was in 1967, Israel against Egypt and Syria and goodness knows who else. And during that war, they interviewed his Prime Minister, what do you think of the problem in the Middle East? And his response was, sir, there is no problem in the Middle East. What do you mean, said the journalist, there's a war on right now. People are dying. What do you mean there's no problem in the Middle East? To which this great statesman replied, sir, a problem is something with a solution. There is no solution in the Middle East, therefore it's not a problem. That's a beautiful way of saying letting go. A statesman has only got a certain amount of time and energy. Why waste your energy where it can make no useful addition? So this is why, if there is something which is right, there are times when we realize right now we cannot do anything except make it worse. We have to let go, be peaceful, and wait our time. Any social action has to be a balance of letting go, of being quiet. And also when there is something to do, give it everything you've got, wisely. Anyways, from Sydney, are there any practical ways to develop kindfulness towards myself? Yes, one way which I've been teaching, I taught you here, I think 2 weeks ago. Put your arms out straight. Okay, you can do it here as well. Come on, do it again. Arms out straight. This is practicing kindfulness to yourself. Now move them in. That's kindfulness towards yourself. You're in the moment and you're being kind. In the retreat I gave in Hong Kong to practice kindfulness towards yourself, we had 2 teddy bears. 2 little teddy bears, one on either side of me. I call one, this is for the Buddhists, one Sariputta and one Moggallana. Because you see pictures of the Buddha, you always have the 2 chief disciples. So my 2 chief disciples in Hong Kong were my 2 teddy bears. And I told people, look, if you can't meditate, take a teddy bear, put it in your lap and hold it and then meditate. It's incredibly powerful. People who hadn't had any peace in their meditation all day, they did teddy bear meditation, not breath meditation, not vipassana, not samatha, teddy bear meditation. And they had kindness and softness. This beautiful soft light teddy bear, which had all associations of the happy times when they were a kid with no problems and worries in their life. They held it as they meditated, they got very peaceful. That's another way of developing kindfulness. Getting a teddy bear and cuddling it, even if you're 60 years of age. Lastly, Richard from Hungary, could you talk about Buddhist view on teaching others, not just Dhamma, but school curriculum in school? What are the principles one should have in mind while trying to teach and inspire others? Thank you. I know that I was a school teacher for 1 year, and I was told beforehand, you don't just teach maths or science like I was teaching, you also teach, who you are. And if you are kind, that's what you're teaching your children. If you are fierce, scold them, bully them, then you're teaching your children to be bullies. So it is not just, say, teaching geography. It's how you teach geography is probably more important than all the facts and names of countries and capitals. More important how you teach. So in a school, it is just the example of the teacher. And I know that some of the great teachers I remember, those who really inspired me. There's one teacher of maths who inspired me because if he made a mistake, and we caught it, he said, you can't do that, you made a mistake. He said, well done, great, you've actually seen I've made a mistake. I made a mistake, I'm human, I'm just like a tree in the forest. And so instead of being afraid of criticism, he taught me to be open to criticism. And there's nothing wrong, with making mistakes. Because my teacher of maths, this head of department, he kept on making. It's a good school in West London. He kept making mistakes. And he was not afraid of it, and not afraid of admitting it. That's one thing I learnt. You know what I learned from Cambridge University? Was whenever anyone had an idea, it was never rejected. Even the most stupid ideas, they say, give it a try. Who knows? Most ideas were so stupid they got nowhere. But every now and again, someone would do a stupid idea and they would find a new way and get a Nobel Prize. That positive encouragement, yeah, give it a try. So that's why I like Ajahn Brahm for sale. What a stupid idea. No, give it a try. Who knows? Be innovative. And that is that great encouragement which made that university, probably more than anything else, that culture of, yeah, give it a try, give it a go, who cares? It's a stupid idea, but who knows? And that sort of positive attitude was probably how we built this place anyway. What a stupid idea it was to come to Perth, of all cities. Why not go to Sydney? There's more people over there. Or Brisbane or something. Why come to Perth to build a Buddhist monastery? Good job we did it, wasn't it? Why build a big monastery down in Serpentine? You never get the money to do that. And what monks would like to come over here? No, you've got too many monks. So that's why, I try and export a few overseas. A nun's monastery, for goodness sake, how can you ordain nuns? It's not allowed. You can't do it. Just give it a try, see what happens. A retreat centre, all this stuff which you do, even the fact this is on the internet. That comes from one of our presidents, Sol Hanna. Why do we put this online? And this was the day when it was just not done. When it came to podcasts, and I remember Sol, one of our former presidents, he said that he was called up by the BBC to be interviewed, BBC in London, because we were one of the first to put podcasts out. The Buddhist Society of Western Australia. Really early. He used to call it the bleeding edge of technology because it cost us a lot of money. We kept on making mistakes. But it was innovative. So give it a try, see what happens. And that's what I learned. So if you are teaching in school curriculum, please inspire your kids. Number one, it's okay to make mistakes. Teacher makes mistakes. And to have this beautiful life of a young person who wants to explore, wants to innovate, wants to do things differently. Even if you as a teacher think it's the most stupid idea, never say no to your kids. Yeah, give it a try, see what happens. Obviously keeping it safe, but take a few risks, see what happens in life. And then you are creating some amazing students. So that's a little bit of advice, from my own personal history. So, any questions from Perth? Anyone from here? Okay, we're going on a bit late today. Okay, so that's probably enough. I got on a bit late tonight because I'm very tired. I just came in this afternoon, from overseas. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed everything this evening. And we can now usually finish by paying respects to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha as usual. And even though there was no one said they had any questions, I'm sure there'll be a long line, as usual, afterwards for questions. Never mind. Okay, so let's now pay respects to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami